want to talk about what people really need to develop facilitating skills or facilitating movement, make us many. Yeah.
Thank you, Carolina. Yeah.
Thank you.
Feel heard.
Okay, so as you see now, I was an active listener, and now I become a speaker, and I choose another active listener, and the rule is I can choose whoever I want. However, it's good to give everybody a chance to become active listener and then speaker. So I will choose Finley. Would you listen to me actively?
I will.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
I'm a little bit nervous because I'm a facilitator, and I feel very uncomfortable when the main coordinator of Future Democracy Hub is a participant of this meeting, and my language skills are not perfect.
I hear that you are a little nervous, and as a facilitator here, particularly when the main facilitator of the Future Democracy Hub is here in our group, and your language, you feel maybe make things a little difficult.
Yeah. There was already discussion if we want to, on Facebook, discussion if we want to be an army, because army of facilitators, because it's kind of setting us in very specific approach. I'm not sure if it's a problem because there was army of non-violent warriors organized by Gandhian friends, Baha Khan. But I might agree that I would prefer a term like fellowship or movement or something like that. I'm struggling with this term army.
I hear that you are concerned with this conversation that you've seen on Facebook about the use of the term army in referring to our group of facilitators. You do recognize that there's some historical precedence for armies that were peaceful and share some of our values probably. But you probably would prefer them to be something like fellowship or movement rather than the army.
Yeah. And actually, I'm trying to spread the idea of Future Democracy Hub as much as I can here in Poland. I sort of advertise, promote every meeting here, and it slightly, very slowly goes forward. It's very difficult because not everybody feels comfortable with language skills. And I believe that it should be connected somehow to regenerative culture, because the highly inclusive democracy and regenerative culture that we don't understand only as a around action activity that helps people get through the stress, that sort of thing. But I understand regenerative culture as much, oh, my time is up, as something more. So they should be connected. I believe they are deeply connected, that the regenerative culture and highly inclusive, very active democracy. They should be connected. And only this way we can develop it. So.
Okay, I hear you say that you think that the regenerative culture and the future democracy should be somehow more related or closer to related than you're experiencing it at the moment.
Yes.
I think you said some reasons, kind of, but I didn't quite grasp it. So
once more?
I heard some reasons very slightly, but I didn't quite grasp what they were.
I suppose I was a little bit mumbling.
There was something about stress. So
I think that I will try to explain that in the next round. Thank you.
Okay.
You were reflecting me great. I'm very thankful.
Thank you.
Now it's your turn.
Great. Okay.
You have to choose someone.
I think just right now, AJ is looking at the screen, so we better have him because he might not be able to in a minute. So, AJ, will you listen to me?
I would love to listen to you, Finlay.
Great. Okay, so first thing I want to just say is something that Paul said in his introduction about creating a new form of democracy to solve. But actually, I want to turn the speaking of solving into more of a verb. So solving. So that is always going to be a process of never really expecting to arrive, but it's now a culture of process rather than of arriving. I think that's part of the problem with democracy as it is, its opinions, that it has to arrive at this. That's how we should do this, and we should do that. Thank you.
So I'm understanding that you've been reflecting on what Paul had to say and that it resonated with you, and you feel like that we need to, all of us need to think more about democracy as a process, not a goal and a destination, but an ongoing conversation, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, I just want to add that the content, what we're discussing, is never necessarily solved, but is in process. It's not just the process is ongoing.
Okay. Yeah, can you tell me more about that?
So the things that we're discussing, that we don't have to arrive at a solution, but that we feel we are part of processes where the channels are always open to continue to discuss this. So the thing is creating the channels and the forums and the focusing and refocusing on all issues all the time, not solved, always to the point where we can be active, but then always able to revise. So we don't want to have an idea of solving, but of having to solve something, but in the process of solving.
So I'm hearing that, yes, as you were saying before, that this needs to change from thinking about reaching an end goal, but to focus, if we can focus more on the process and having, as you said, channels open, processes ongoing, always being able to keep moving with those, then we'll be on the right track.
Great, that's it. So there's some concern I have with facilitators and hosting being able to do these processes or their facilitation given sort of time constraints and their busy lives and needing to earn a living. So there's an open question here about whether people can make careers out of it. And I imagine that most people involved and wanting to be involved don't have that option at the moment. So it's an open question, really.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're thinking about if we can build this army, how is this army that needs to feed itself going to make a living? Can it be through running this sort of work, or is it going to have to be outside this sort of work? And if so, how are we all going to make the time, and how are the people who join the army going to make the time to keep this going?
Lovely. Excellent. I've got one more, which is about needing, or at least I'd be interested in helping to facilitate a group talking about the levels of development and the levels of meaning making that people have in terms of climate change, so that we understand as facilitators how to talk to these people who will understand things in different ways, depending on how they make meaning out of their lives. So different languaging for different levels of development.
Yeah, that sounds to me like you're delving into a very complex issue of how do people make meaning of things, questions in linguistics, people's level of knowledge about climate, how they interpret that, how they see their own lives and the world, and that being a challenge. Is that what you're saying? How do we navigate that challenge?
That is a challenge for a facilitator, to have that in mind, because we can go down a certain route of trying to force information in them, but if they're not able to absorb information, we need to recognize their state in these terms. Yeah. Okay. You have it anyway, but that's we probably could get on. Thanks very much.
But you can reflect what you Finley just said. AJ, try to reflect that.
I think, sorry, I think I got a bit lost there at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
I can do it next round. We can come back to that in another way. Thank you.
Okay.
You did good, AJ. Thank you.
AJ, now it's your turn. You choosing person who will listen to you.
Well, Anne, would you like to listen to me?
Thank you, AJ. Yes, I'd be very honoured to listen.
I guess I'm coming to this this discussion and this opportunity thinking about Australia as compared to where you're all based, and I'm very worried that we're a very divided country. We're divided politically at the moment, based on we're also geographically divided. We're such a big country with people.
Sorry, I'm missing a few words. I heard you say that you're thinking about your context of Australia, but you used a couple of specific words that I didn't pick up. I'm sorry.
No problem. I'll try this. We are a very geographically divided country. We're so huge. People are so spread out. We are divided by states that have very different politics. And because we are both a very beautiful natural country, but we're also the world's biggest coal producer, we are very divided about what we hold dear. And I'm concerned that division between people is going to be a big problem.
Mm-hmm. So I hear you talking about your context, which is Australia, huge, vast, and quite polarised politically around the coal mines, the coal mining, the beauty of the land, and the value, I guess, of the land, whether it's about the climate and the beauty, or the coal, the resources that can be extracted.
Yes, agreed. And those are big forces playing against each other. And I'm based in inner city Sydney, which would be as progressive and open-minded to things like this as you could find. But if I go 5 kilometres in numerous different directions, am I going to find people who are not only open to Extinction Rebellion, but open to going into processes like the ones we're talking about here?
So your own context is an urban city of Sydney, which is quite progressive, and you'd find like-minded people around you very easily. but you don't have to go very far. 5 kilometres, that's not very far at all, before you would meet people who would maybe have no understanding or no desire to have any understanding of what you're saying about climate change.
Yes, and also about engaging in a process, an empathy circle, for example, on any topic. So I'm wondering about whether the approach needs to be that we send out people from the army across my state and Australia to different tiny towns to do this work, or do you simply go to the next suburb along and talk to people there and try and grow it more organically? It might be slower and more frustrating, but is that a stronger way to grow this, by talking to the person who lives next door and trying to spread it out slowly and strongly?
Mm-hmm. So rather than the image of the army, which is going to, this army of trained people marching across your land, you're actually suggesting that that it should grow organically from local communities. So facilitators would maybe be more trusted. You didn't say that. I'm putting words into your mouth, but I'm guessing people that would be recognised as locals and known in their local community may be more trusted.
Yes, I think, and I would agree with that. I guess what I wasn't endorsing either of those approaches. I guess I'm wondering which one of those is going to work. So that would be a question I would ask about how to strategically move the army around once you are gaining facilitators and getting people on board. How do you create presence in different suburbs and tiny towns? How do you spread it out? It seems there might be a lot of ways to do it, and I don't know which the best one would be.
Mm-hmm. So you're questioning in your own mind as to how this is rolled out across such a vast country, whether it is coming from one place and kind of rolling across the country, or whether the encouragement is that these things, that the facilitation kind of springs up organically in local places.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Anne. That was wonderful.
Thank you, AJ. So I guess it's my turn.
Yes, your turn to speak, and you can choose whoever you want. However, Paul didn't reflect yet, but you can choose whoever you want.
Yeah, I'm happy with Paul. He looks friendly enough.
Be honoured. Thank you.
Yes, I think I'm sharing some of the nervousness that Carolina expressed, because there's quite a lot of terms being used that I'm not familiar with. I suppose at some point I'm going to have to stop saying I'm new to XR, but I'm feeling quite new to XR tonight with some of the terms that are being used. Democracy hub being one of them.
So you're feeling a little nervous about some of the terms that are being used. You're saying that you'll have to stop saying you're new to XR, but there's some nervousness because there's certain terms being used that you're not familiar with.
So I think because of that, I have more questions than I have views or statements, really. And I think one of the first questions that I have is around what is democracy to XR? Is there this is the way we do democracy that XR expounds? I have some nervousness when I hear the term inclusive democracy, and I'm wondering, I don't know how much to say before I pause.
So what I heard there, Anne, was that you you have more questions than comments at this stage.
Yeah.
One of them is about what democracy means. You're saying that you're here because it's about the future democracy hub. What does that mean to XR is one of your questions. And you also said something around, you've got nervousness about the inclusive democracy. What that also means.
And I think what my question around that has already come up to some extent. You know, a question as to whether we can include everybody in a circle and expect that everybody, just by virtue of the fact that we're all friendly and open and actively listening, that everybody is going to engage in the same way and at the same level and with the same understanding.
So I'm hearing questions, really important questions for you around the kind of inclusivity and whether that can really be everyone and what that looks like, and also regarding the level of engagement of those people as well, and what that might look like.
I think I have something in the back of my mind that floated across my screen on Facebook today about consensus democracy. There was some post and somebody used the term that, you know, of course, XR is a consensus democracy. And that's not my understanding of the way teal organisations work. In fact, it frightens the life out of me.
So I'm hearing another concern that you're expressing there about something, a phrase today that you read on Facebook was consensus democracy, and that seemed to be being applied to XR, and that's not your understanding about what a teal organisation is.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose another question is around why are we doing that? Why the idea of the I don't like army. I'm with whoever says they don't like army. I don't like using that word, but why are we doing it? Is this a conversation that we want to have in XR? Is that what it's about? That we want everybody and the world to feel heard. We want to hear everybody's views and where they're all at? Or is this going to provide a way of making decisions in XR? Or both? Or neither?
So your next question is around why are we doing this? You got a also reported concern about the phrase army. But you're wondering, are we talking about a conversation, just so that our intent is to just hear everyone in this conversation? Is that possible? And or is it about actually making decisions? And when you asked that question, you were talking about, seems, within XR. That was your question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. If I could just withdraw the word just, and I did use just conversation, and I'd like to take that out, because I think conversations are really important and hearing people are really important. So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. I feel heard.
Thank you. Paul, your turn. You can choose whoever you want.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll jump so that we don't go straight to the the front of the queue, so people get a little bit of time to reflect while they go next. But Finley, I think you were third last time, so if I could speak to you, that work? Yeah, lots to reflect on here, off the back of what you've all said. I think I wanted to start with the whole concept of regenerative culture within this particular initiative, and I really resonate with that a lot. And yeah, raises a question about how we do that. And the answer that comes is it's part of that process of really listening to what people need in order to be able to go out there and facilitate, for me.
I hear that there's lots for you to reflect on what you've heard. Particularly, you are drawn to the notion of the regenerative culture within this initiative. So I think you're referring to the future democracy, or the facilitator army. I think that's probably more likely. And the question of how that would be, and you particularly feel that in relation to how we really listen deeply to all the needs, and so have everybody feel included.
Yeah, I'm still, really focusing on what it's going to take, and really want to find out. I think this is my big inquiry. If there's somebody comes along and says, right, I'm just keen to do this, I just want to get out there and do it, so we got that energy to have that conversation with them, to find out what they need just to get out there and do it, and then we deal with what they bring back. So yeah, it could be, right, it was a disaster, right, will we support you? Or it was really successful, I want to do loads more, whatever.
Yeah, so you're really drawn to focusing on what it takes to was I listening?
I can repeat.
Yes, go on.
So to actually get out there and do these things. So if somebody's really keen to get on with it, then we give them what they need, right, and then they give it a try. And it's that feedback loop,
right,
we want to get going.
Yes, is that trying, and when they come back with whether it works or whether it's a disaster or whether they've had some insights, that it's all there, but really getting people in action if there's energy for them to, if they want to do this, if they're drawn to it.
That's right. So in terms of building the group, the army, I'd love there to be a different word. I can't find anything that is just encapsulates this kind of moving forward, really getting out there. But I'd love if there was one. This sense of people then coming along and seeing all of this activity and that being inspiring to them, thinking, right, well, I'm going to go out there. I've heard from Carolina. I'm so inspired with what she did over there, and I think I can do that too. And then come back and share that, and then that momentum will grow, and it will be such an action-orientated movement.
Yeah. So when talking about the building this army, an army, again, you would love there to be another word which I'm ready to give an opinion on, but I'm not allowed to. So, but you want people to sort of see the activity, and then they would be perhaps inspired by seeing the facilitator and feel that they could do that, they would want to do that, and then take it from there. So in having conversations, it would be seen.
Yeah. Have we got time for one little bit more? No. Okay, I'll pause there then. Thanks, Finley. You can now talk, you see, and you can give us your ideas.
Okay.
Well done for being disciplined. Thank you.
Me.
I feel.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Anne. Please, will you listen to me, Anne?
I will. Thank you.
So, just on the term army, I wonder if we could begin to reclaim that word from the negative connotations by putting the positive connotations into it. You know, there's something about the force required to make changes that army speaks to, that other words like group, organization don't do that.
Okay, so thank you. You're suggesting that rather than finding a new word, you would like to reclaim the positive aspects of the word army, the strength. I can't remember what else you said, but you want to find, you want to reclaim the positive of it, and perhaps you were suggesting that other words like movement wouldn't have the same strength that the word army has.
Right. So just to expand on that, that the implications of an army are to go into some issue and to change it and to influence strongly. So movement is too vague.
Okay. So the word movement doesn't have enough description to it to give a real sense of the intention that army does of going in with a purpose, with a real purpose to make a difference.
Lovely, thank you. You put it better. So I hear too that you, Anne, were talking about teal organizations and concerns about this being, I can't remember the words you use now, but you know, being everybody's opinions kind of getting in there, which sounds a little bit difficult, given that different levels of understanding will have different weight in terms of their relevance to the issue, and how do we put that into the mix?
Thank you. So you were reflecting back to me something I said about teal organisations and the teal organisation being the basis of XR, and and wondering whether these conversations the conversations that happen within these empathy circles can reflect all views, all value systems.
Given that different levels of understanding will have different relevance. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I'll take that on as well to something that AJ was talking about whether we do it this way or we do it that way. And I think at the sort of teal organization level, it's not a question of one or the other, but actually a question of both. And what is most relevant, or in fact most easy, or most comfortable, most likely to produce action in us, would be the path to take within the context of facilitating. Could be your neighbor, it could be the whole country, whatever comes to you.
So you're saying that within a teal organization, the nature of polarization, the idea of either this way or that way, actually a teal organization would say, well, let's do both, and let's be aware of both sides. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten the last line you said, which was important.
But that was good enough. Well, I've forgotten
it wasn't
it too.
Important.
Have I done? Okay, thank you very much for listening, Anne. Thank you.
Thank you, Finley.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, I want to sit back and listen. Hey Jay, would you listen? Are you house baby? What's baby's name?
Baby is called Ned. He's named after our most famous rebel, Ned Kelly. But yes, and I'm listening. I'm just trying to keep him awake at the moment.
Would you be able to listen to me?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I would like to say something about, I think, responding to what Finley was just saying about the both and, about being able to hold conversations that can hold different people who are coming from different value systems, coming from different places, and teasing that out with what we mean by radical inclusion.
So you're reflecting on what Finlay had to say about the two processes of how we spread this army out and how it may, I was going to say include radical inclusion, how it might express radical inclusion. Would that be right?
Mm-hmm. Or hold, maybe, yeah, hold radical inclusion. And so I think I'm coming back to what you were saying, AJ, about the difference between rolling our army that's going to go in and change stuff, rather than kind of rolling it out across the country, actually for it to emerge kind of in an understood context. So how does that sound?
So you're leaning towards, would that be fair to say, leaning towards, instead of rolling out an army, that we are, you're embedding it, looking to place it and letting it grow in these different locations? Was that what you were saying when you said the embedded context? Was that the wording you had?
So maybe encouraging facilitators to emerge from their local context. And by local context, I think I don't just necessarily mean geographical, but within their own mosque, within their own church, within their own community centre, town hall.
So we can find a way to encourage, nurture, foster facilitators in all different kinds of locations, contexts, like sporting clubs, mosques, places, cultures, to then become members of this army and grow that way. If I'm hearing you right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, yeah. And I'm beginning to get an image of Indira's net or something similar, of, you know, kind of facilitators emerging from local contexts and then connecting, so that you're getting some kind of connection across facilitators. As XR kind of tries to form itself, you know, different circles and people connecting from different circles, I guess the facilitator army would mirror that.
Okay.
Good idea.
So building on what you said about embedding and creating these facilitators in different locations, you see that they could then connect. And am I right that you mean connect with other facilitators, creating a network of facilitators? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Thank you. Yeah, I think AJ and Ned.
He was in furious agreement. Carolina. Would you?
Okay, I will listen to you.
I guess I've been hearing a lot of what's been said and finding it very hard to remove my media and messaging hat, which is sort of what I do in my work and is the main thing I guess I do in XR. And so I've been filtering a lot of the suggestions and concerns through a marketing and PR sort of filter.
So I lost a little bit at the beginning of what you were saying, but as I understand you saying that your main job in XR is kind of controlling social media, messaging and promoting things in social media, so to get outreach. Is that what you mean?
Yes, but some of it is, about half of it is also traditional media. So what will the papers say about the things that we do and are planning?
Okay, so this is only part of your job. Another part of your job is to prepare some info, press info for media, traditional media, to increase control on what media would say about XR actions.
Yes. So two things came to mind. One was I've been on radio and done interviews, and to have someone say to me, or perhaps in the Murdoch press here, them say, Extinction Rebellion is building an army, is an issue for a headline. And on one hand, it could lead to great discussion where we explain what that is. But if the average person simply reads the line, radical environmentalists building an army, that could be very bad.
So you're referring to the term army of facilitators, and you want to notice the fact that if such a term, such a phrase will appear in any headline in traditional media, it will take attention and probably provoke a discussion, but just regular person who read these headlines, it will build a wrong impression, deeply wrong, and actually very harming to the movement.
Yes. So I think that's just an idea to discuss. And the other thought I had was around the purpose. So while we are arming up people with the skills to be facilitators, to hold these circles and to foster this good work, are we communicating to them, to the rebels, to the potential facilitators, the purpose of this? Do we have an outcome in mind? I agree with what Finlay said about it's about the process. I also think there needs to be some thoughts on why we are doing this and what we hope it will achieve.
So what I hear you talking about what is purpose or goal of this, of what we want to achieve. And you agree with Finlay when he was talking about, time is up, about perceiving it as a process, not as a state or goal. And I might have problem with reflecting that part, I feel like I lost something. It wasn't clear to me. And could you repeat that a little bit? Maybe I will.
Sure. I guess I'm just trying to keep it simple that I would love, as a media person, to be able to say, we are building a facilitator army so that people of different persuasions can better understand each other in this difficult time, or so that rebels can regenerate and feel better about the challenges of this movement. So maybe just thinking about some goals, long-term, simple goals that we want to achieve from this.
So what I hear you talking about, from one side, you agree that this is the process, not the state, what we want to achieve, and it will dynamically changing. It will be dynamically changing. But what you need is sort of clear, simple message about the purpose or goal we want to achieve, because you look at that from the media perspective. That's what you mean?
Yes, and I would just add that both the external media and when we're communicating to rebels and potential facilitators, but otherwise,
okay. So yes. You believe that we need clear, simple message, not just for the external media, but also inside the movement.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was tough. Thank you.
We did it.
Okay, so who might choose? Maybe I choose Paul this time. Paul, would you reflect me?
I'd love to.
Okay. I have a lot of notes from what you were saying, all of you. And I remember the last discussion, because in regular empathy circles we have on Fridays, we discussing in last few weeks, we discussing the culture we would desire to live in, the vision of culture. And during the last meeting, we were talking about among other things, in some point we start talking about some features of culture we would like to live in. And it might sound like, everybody wants such features, nothing special, like openness, curiosity, honesty, authenticity. It means nothing. But when we realize that, but when the person says about that she doesn't find herself in a society, she doesn't recognize if somebody is honest with her or not, because she kind of moved from the working class to the upper middle class, and she doesn't recognize customs in this upper middle class. She can't find herself. So suddenly those values start meaning something. Openness, honesty, authenticity.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to get you to repeat
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Quite a lot of stuff there, but
I'm sorry.
you had a lot of notes, so there's probably a lot of stuff that obviously coming out very quickly. You were saying that you were talking in the empathy circle on Friday, this whole idea of the vision of culture and the features that would have, and that's the bit where I might need to ask you to summarize, because you were saying things around there was some obvious stuff that people sort of say, yes, that's a given, and then you were talking a little bit about class as well. So can you just go over that bit again? So we
it was, naming some values, we can say that everybody wants the same values, and it's kind of, in general speaking, and it says it's like we use words and they mean nothing. I don't know how to express that different way, but when we give examples from our life, real life, suddenly the value like openness or authenticity starts to mean something.
Right. So what I'm hearing there is that you can use these terms that are very general, and and people say, "Oh yeah, I get that. I want that, of course," but it's not really very specific and meaningful for individuals, other than just very general. And what I think I'm hearing is you're saying that what's a lot more useful if people can really convey their personal experiences, and then it becomes a lot more authentic. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and probably this is a part of the problem of spreading the idea of facilitating and inclusive democracy. We need to somehow practice and give people this, I don't know if it's right word, hunch, taste of, okay, it works. And probably it has to be connected to real problems people face.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing there is that what it seems like what you're saying we're trying to do is to give people that experience of um, of I'm not sure whether you said it as of being heard, rather than an idea of being heard. It's that experience, and you use the word hunch, so they've got an that's what it's like kind of experience.
Yeah. And for example, lately I participate in Empathy Circle because in one of the groups I am a member, a conflict began, and we immediately start Empathy Circle because we wanted to resolve the problem. And in the first moment, I felt scared, horribly scared of what will gonna happen. And then people who obviously wanted to stay together, they have this wish, this deep, time is up, this deep, very deep will to connect, to reconnect after the conflict that appeared. So it worked, and I feel so connected suddenly to all the people. It was amazing. So that's what I mean.
Yeah, what I heard there was you saying that as an example of what you were describing in the first part of your comments, was to give people this experience, and you had an experience where there was conflict in an empathy circle, and then you immediately went into that empathy circle process, and your experience was one of really bringing people together, and there was a desire there collectively to reconnect, because the conflict you experienced as discomfort, uncomfortable, and you asserted other people did too, and there was a real, almost like celebration of that it works. You were able to deal with it, and it's kind of a celebration of the process in that instance.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to only add one thing, because Anne was talking about it. I think that inclusive democracy is possible only among people who really want to understand each other, wish to understand each other, have this goodwill. And somebody doesn't have it, or even don't realize, that people don't realize that they don't have this real will to connect with others. I sometimes see myself, okay, I'm discussing, but I don't really want to understand this other person. I catch myself on this attitude that I am not fully ready to understand the other person. So, yeah.
So what I heard then was just you recognizing something that you think you heard Anne say around the need within this is the commitment to understand other people. And if that's not there, then you've experienced it yourself where you don't have that on occasions, and it makes a big impact on your ability to listen.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
So we've all been round twice. What do we do? Do we keep going?
I think we have 10 minutes, about 10 minutes. So at least 2 people have chance to speak.
Okay. Should I?
We can choose use hands, and 5 means that I have a lot of to say.
Okay.
That means not really. So if anybody wants to say, feels like he or she needs to say, show 5. Okay, so maybe Paul and Finley. Okay, Paul.
So do I pick Finley to? No, does it work that way?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's me and you again then, Bud.
Hang on. I refuse to be picked. I think if you pick somebody else, they've got a chance to speak a bit more.
But
maybe they don't want to. It's true. Maybe reflecting not such a privilege. Okay.
We've already been selected. Yeah, I got so much happening for me in that last round. It was so rich. Thank you, everybody, for saying everything you've said. I did wonder about this whole idea about reclaiming words. We also need to explain, just going back off what AJ was saying, really fascinating what you were saying. And my heart shuddered a bit when you were saying that when the right-wing media get a hold of the word army, what's going to happen. But this is also this facilitator. If people understand what the word facilitator is, a little bit like what Carolina was saying, they have this sense of experience of what a process facilitator is and the magic that they can bring, the value in this culture.
So I hear that you found there was a lot of so much your words in the last round, and that you're really grateful for all of that from us. And you are drawn particularly to what AJ was saying about the media, and you shuddered at the idea of the right-wing press having their way with the idea of an army. And also Carolina's idea of the magic of facilitating, about the demonstrating the facilitation, actually what it can do.
Yeah, and kind of educating, really taking responsibility for making sure that the culture understands what a facilitation is. And I wanted to just share an idea that Rosa shared with me a couple of days ago, because it's got me thinking about having a reality TV show around this kind of process where people could watch this working, and think, right, all these people with massive diverse views, we could have it on Brexit, and then some real skilled facilitators show what is possible. Amazing.
So you just wanted to recap on the facilitator magic and its ability to actually educate culture. And also you wanted to share something that Rosa was talking to you about a little while ago, which was about the idea of a reality TV show where this sort of facilitation that, you know, could be demonstrated, maybe around Brexit or something like that.
Yeah, there's something really moving about people coming from very polarized positions to positions of understanding. I think that would be very powerful, even just to watch. I've seen, you know, TED Talks about that, you know, where there's radical views been kind of brought together, and it's very, very inspiring. The last thing I wanted to say is this: it's almost like a question, really. It's an ongoing inquiry of this balance between our inner development, which I really do believe we need to cultivate, versus there's only so much of that we can do for the people in the world. And the big kind of part of what facilitators in democracy need to do is to be able to just bring all these diverse views and perspectives of the world and positions so that we can get a wise answer. Doesn't mean necessarily we all have to become teal.
So you're expecting it to be very quite moving for us to be able to see people resolve conflicts, and you refer to TED Talks on the subject as well, and you also were raising an open question about individual development. I'm not sure quite how that related to the last point, which was about being able to get everybody. So no, I've lost the last bit.
Yeah, it was just the balance between developing people's kind of awareness and consciousness versus just bringing people together wherever they're at,
right.
and that be able to create wise answers as a collective.
Yeah. So you're saying that isn't necessarily the case that we need everybody's individual development to be up to par, but just that the wise answers will come out of all the levels and all the people being involved.
Maybe. I'm not sure what
your
the answer
open
to that question is. Yeah. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Good. So I will go to.
You've muted yourself.
You mute yourself.
So what a relief, because I was being rude, so I won't say that again. So Carolina, please.
Okay.
So hang on, my chair's just gone down. That's no good. So I'm putting my hands up like this because I've always got something to say, not because I had anything like really burning to say, but you know, in reflecting everybody else, I think that a piece that came up about the both and is very important. That the personal development and everybody just getting involved. I think that's what we need to see, that we don't need to put one up against the other, that they're both open questions. They don't have to be resolved against each other.
I'm afraid I have problem with reflecting that. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So, in relation to what AJ was saying about where the conclusion. So in relation to what Anne and I were saying about AJ's comment about, I'm making it so convoluted for you. Let me start again. Wipe the slate. The idea of both and can apply to the idea of personal development and cultural development through everybody being involved.
So you were reflecting, you were referring to what AJ was saying, what Anna was saying, and you notice two processes, personal and collective process. That's what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could put it that way too. I think that's, we could just all say something with open mics for the last minute rather than me going on, because I could just carry on with the same theme. And I think it's been said a
But
little bit.
try to explain, even if I don't have time to reflect.
Okay, that in our quest to find answers and the best way forward, and which really reflects just our confusion, it doesn't even reflect where things are in the world, what is actually happening, that all of these things are kind of included in the process, all where we don't know and where we do know, our interiors and our exteriors. So we need to get to a place where it's all included. Thank you very much. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
It's also a great tool, but I agree with you. Not, yeah, whatever.
Okay. I'm very sorry, Finley, for interrupting your
No, it's cool. We've been discussing for some time, and it was over, so we're happy to see you.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. If you're a facilitator and you're recording, you can turn off your recording. We have this main recording going.